Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is embracing the shadow. While we like to have life be light and bright, there are times that we go through the shadow, and the shadow actually makes the light brighter and is a very important part of our evolution. So today we're going to talk about how we can embrace those moments of darkness, or the cycles of darkness that take us through to the light. Before we get started, good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. Before we get started, we're just going to take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're talking about embracing the shadow. And light and shadow, day and night, summer, winter, these are cycles of life. And it's the contrast that brings us into conscious awareness of these transitions that are so much a part and are so essential to life and evolution and our personal growth. So it's interesting. I'm finding it very interesting to see that the certain cycles for myself, and I'm imagining that you might experience these as well if you sort of take a broader look at it. So the way that I work in my coaching practice is that I do 3 months on and 1 month off, 3 months on, 1 month off. And it's very interesting to notice that in my month off, I have had um, I'm going to say I've had an opportunity, but a rising of the shadow work, like calls to do the shadow work, where old patterns sort of resurface in their most recent newest expression. So this gets us into the conversation about the spirals of change, because so many of us revisit the same things over and over and over in life, and it feels sometimes like we're not making any progress. It's like, oh my gosh, this again? Like, are you kidding me? But the thing to keep in mind that's really important is to recognize that who we are now, engaging with this thematic issue is not the same person that we were when these issues last arose. So, the other thing that's a very helpful thing to create a context in which to address these shadows is that if it's coming up to heal. And it's an invitation to heal or to complete something, to dissolve something. And as these different angles, perspectives on these issues arise for us, we gain certain insights that can be revelatory sometimes, to say, oh my gosh, this perspective that I had on this for so long, I can see where it wasn't complete. I can see where it wasn't accurate, where I was viewing something through a certain lens, and now I'm able to readjust that lens, which now gives me a very different vantage point. I think that as we move through these evolutions, it's really important not to invalidate where we were as we get these new revelations, to recognize we were where we were. You know, the recognition that life is evolving, that our awareness is evolving, that that we had perhaps our last perspective had certain limitations on it that we weren't aware of. And in other words, not invalidating ourselves and our journey and the evolutions that occur within the context of that journey. So back to embracing the shadow, and this notion of if it's coming up to heal. I think that can help us not resist the intensity, the emotion, the even reactivity, the reactive patterns that may be triggered as we dive into the shadow, or as the shadow envelops us. It feels that way, doesn't it? Sometimes, like that the shadow is just sort of surrounding us and enveloping us, embracing us. And I think that when we are in these cycles, that our challenge is to be in it but not of it, if that makes sense, to allow ourselves to experience the experience, to allow ourselves to be engaged with the experience without getting sucked into the vortex of it, without making it mean additional things, without layering meaning upon it, to say, oh, well, I'm feeling this again, so it means that whatever. It means that I haven't progressed, or it means that there's something wrong with me, or it means that all these negative things that we often assign to experiences that feel uncomfortable. We could make it mean, I mean, it's funny. I think that we often default to negative meanings, And it's not that they're true or that the positive meanings are any more true, but the positive meanings can help us navigate to get to the other side of these things more readily. So we could make it mean, oh, great, here's an opportunity for a breakthrough, right? It doesn't necessarily make the discomfort less, but when we reduce the resistance, it allows us to flow with whatever is emergent for us. So the shadow, the shadow can give our eyes a rest too, you know. Sometimes the bright lights are a bit much, and the shadow or the darkness is to be able to retreat into oneself perhaps a bit, to be a little bit more introspective perhaps, and to be able to shift our perspective, to even broaden our perspective. If we can muster the will and courage and intention to sit with the discomfort and breathe through it and engage it as a source of wisdom or a potential catalyst for wisdom to deepen our awareness. The challenge with any of this personal growth stuff is to not be getting locked into new stories around it, because we have all these stories, and when we look at our lives, it's very tempting oftentimes to rewrite a narrative that explains why we are the way we are, and to then kind of categorize ourselves, put ourselves in a neat little box, tie a bow on it. Now I understand. And when we do that, we can keep repeating that. And that box that might have initially felt liberating then becomes its own constraint. So Rosalind says, story making mind. I'll hear something and think, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Great. Okay, so story making mind 100%. And yes, we can hear something and say, yeah, that's what I'm feeling in this moment. And I think the in this moment piece is critically important, so that we don't lock ourselves into a definition that's fixed. So when we embrace the shadow, it's not about adding that darkness to a foundational story. It is saying, yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. And what is it related to? And where did it come from? And oh, I see that. And what does that aspect of myself need? This is a great question, actually. What does that aspect of myself need in order to be able to move forward, in order to be able to dissolve? And I say dissolve rather than heal in a very deliberate way, to dissolve that dynamic, that overlay, that belief or spell or perspective, to dissolve whatever is holding us into that pattern. And the reason for the word dissolve rather than heal is that there's nothing broken. There's wholeness that all kinds of things have been layered on top of. And I'm saying that from a vantage point of, for many years, having believed that I was broken, feeling that I was broken, and always wanting to fix myself. And I've come to believe that it's not so much that we're broken, but that there are all these things layered on top of our wholeness that make it less accessible to us. And as we can dissolve these overlays, we can come back to our wholeness. We can expose the wholeness that we are bit by bit as we dissolve these other things that have been piled on top of our wholeness and our essence. So the shadow is an absence of light. When we, good morning, Sue. So great to have you here with us this morning. Welcome. We're talking about embracing the shadow. And also, as we embrace it, not holding it super tight, but allowing it to be a teacher. That our bodies are our teachers, our emotions are our teachers. The darkness is a teacher, the light is a teacher. We are blessed with the opportunity to engage with life as willing and enthusiastic students, and to use every opportunity to grow into our best self. So Sue says, good topic, timely. Yeah, well, it's winter, right? And we're facing all kinds of circumstances that stir uncomfortable emotions. And I just want to reiterate, if it's coming up, it's coming up to heal. And the first place for healing all of our challenges, whether they're global or personal or anywhere in between, is with ourselves. When we allow ourselves to be with the discomfort of whatever the feelings are, we don't have to deepen it. We don't have to make stories up about it. We don't have to feed it, but we can receive it. We can experience it. If we allow ourselves to be in the discomfort, what happens is that we're able then to allow it to move by not resisting. By allowing what's present to be present, we then connect to a greater flow. It's in resisting or denying those shadow moments, resisting or denying, deflecting, exiling, trying to compartmentalize, moving all this stuff out of the way. It's in that resistance that we make those things more deeply entrenched. And that's why I say also hold with open hand. We don't have to end up identifying with it because life is this flow. And in this moment, there's the darkness, for example. And as we are allowing open hand rather than the clinging to certain ideas or beliefs about who we are or what this means, as we can just sort of allow the ebbs and flows, what happens is there's ebb and flow. That we often are the ones that are damming the river. We are the ones that don't allow for those transitions of light and shadow, of ups and downs in emotion. We're complex systems. Each of us is a very complex system with one thing tying into another, into another, into another. And it's like dominoes, but it's like 3D dominoes because it's not a linear thing where you knock one down and they all go down. They're interrelated on different dimensions. Uh, so good question. How do we help ourselves not identify it? By feeling it and moving on? Well, I think we get to feel it while we feel it. So breathing into it, experiencing the darkness and breathing into it and noticing what are the thoughts? What are the thoughts that are feeding it? And maybe looking at what are the origins of those thoughts. So the last time this came up for me was in September with really deep dark dive, and I literally I spent a week. I had the luxury of spending a week deeply engaged in the inquiry, watching TV sort of as a mindless thing, and tears just sort of leaking out of my face. And what was showing up as I allowed myself to feel the feelings was deep wounds from childhood that still were very present for me. And so what I was able to do is to, by doing that tracing, like what are the thoughts associated with this feeling? What's the origin of those thoughts? And it took me back to childhood. And then the question, well, what does that child need? What can I give that child that will support her? And so I was able to love that little kid, just to have sort of in my mind's eye, a dialogue with her and to just cuddle with her and hold her and let her know she was supported and that she was wonderful just as she was. And so for me, that's where things trace back to the skill there for all of us to cultivate is first to be able to be present with the discomfort of the feeling and not identify with it. So how do we not do that is to recognize I have these feelings. It's not who I am. So to recognize that we are not, we are bigger, who we are is bigger than the feelings that we feel. The feelings that we feel are important. They're communications. What if those feelings are communications and not our identity? They're communications from another dimension of our intelligence. And they're a call for love and attention. So that might help to recognize that our emotions are a part of our greater intelligence trying to communicate with us. And when our emotions are uncomfortable, they're saying, hey, it's like a little kid just crying, please give me the attention. Please listen to me. Let's explore this together. So if we can receive it as an invitation, that might help us not identify with it. Receive it as part of a dialogue. So Rosalind says, I like that, an invitation to look closer. Yeah, instead of something's wrong, what's wrong, right? It's like an invitation and a communication to engage more deeply. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's a privilege and a pleasure to have the opportunity to engage with you each morning with these morning musings about what it is to be human